was released on June 7, 2024, and is Ishana Knight Shyamalan's directorial debut. She's 24 years old and the daughter of M. Night Shyamalan. There is very clear influences with her father's way of directing, but the storyline is very much her own. We follow the character Mina throughout the majority of the film, and we see her start out in a pet store. And we can very distinctly hear somebody talking about watching the animals within the cage. It was mostly talking about insects or smaller reptilian creatures, but they said that it was temperature controlled and that you could see the animals through the glass. And then we see her boss tells her, hey, I need you to bring this bird to the middle of the forest in Western Ireland. And she says, all right, I'll go do it, no problem. And before she leaves, she tells the bird, hey, don't die, I'm just gonna go out for the night. And we see her dress up with a wig and some lipstick, and she goes out to meet someone. And she tells the bird, hey, don't judge me, I do this sometimes, so I don't have to be who I am. She wanted to dress up as another person. So she starts off on this journey, and we see her, while she's almost there, stop at a gas station to get some gas, and there is a zoom in on a poster board that has a bunch of missing persons on it. And she doesn't notice it. She gets back in her car and continues driving. And before long, she's in the middle of the forest and her car breaks down. Now her car breaking down is the pivotal moment. She is in this forest and there is no clear way of getting out. It's almost sunset and she takes her bird and starts walking around. And as soon as she goes a few feet, the car disappears. And she's confused. She's like, what's going on? How is this happening? And we think back to the very beginning of the scene where this man is running through what we understand is the same forest and is trying to get out. And there are these signposts that say point of no return, number 181, and there was various numbers. And we see him be taken away and disappear. So we're constantly facing this idea of this forest creates illusions, which is later confirmed by the other people she runs into in the forest. So it is about to go dark, and all of a sudden, all of these birds start swooping across the forest, and she also starts running. She sees a shadow in the forest, and she decides to go after it, saying, hey, I need help, come back, I need help. And she ends up in this little cabin in the woods where they are stuck, and then there is a glass structure that is a one-way screen. So they cannot see what is on the outside, but whoever's on the outside can see into it. And they tell her there's 3 other people in this place that's trapped. One of them is an older lady that has long dark white hair, and then there is 2 younger people, a man and a woman. We later find out that the younger woman, her husband was the one we saw in the opening scenes. So they say you have to present yourself to the watchers. The watchers need to see you and to see what's going on. Now, as we unravel what happens at the end of the movie, there's a few questions that make you think. The watchers are only supposed to come out at night. They are afraid of the sunlight, and they have these burrows that they live within. And there's a few rules. You cannot open the door at night once they are in the cabin, and you cannot go into the burrows, and you cannot go past the points of no return. And they're very strict with these rules, and they say how it's very easy to lose your mind in this forest because you will start to see hallucinations. So we're constantly questioning, what are we seeing and who are these people? What are their motives and why are they there and how long have they been there? And she openly asks them, like, how long have you been here? The girl's been there for 5 months and the boy has been there for 8 months. And yet we don't really know how long the old white-haired lady has been. And there's a very important twist that happens towards the end. So they are trying to survive, trying to figure things out. And Mina, our main character, decides to go into the burrow And she goes down there and she steals a bike to bring up and use that as a way to escape, because they have figured out that you cannot escape by land throughout the day, that it takes too much time, and by the time it's nighttime you need to run back to the cabin. So she steals this bike, and that night the watchers are very upset and they are banging on the glass, and the older woman says, if they break this glass, we are dead. So they're very upset, and the older woman decides to throw everything back into the burrow so that they have a chance of continuing to survive. But at some point, they realize that this is a game that can no longer be played. And at one point, we see that they find a camera, which was also taken from the burrow, and they hook it up to their TV that they have, and they set it up as like a surveillance camera. And as a part of a trick that the watchers are playing, they pretend that it is the husband of the woman, and she begs him to say, hey, like, what's going on? Like, how have you been out there? And at this point, he's been out there for weeks, and from what the viewers know, he is dead. So the old white-haired lady says, no, like, this isn't him. It's a trick that they're playing on us. From what we understand, the watchers can transform. And that is what she tells us later on. She says that she was walking through the forest and she saw one of the watchers try to transform into her, but it wasn't quite an exact replica. And as the story elapses, we realize that Mina is also a twin, and she was the cause of her mother's death, and that we later see that full flashback where she's playing in the back and her mother runs straight into an oncoming truck. Her mother dies and her twin sister are left behind, and we see at the beginning of the movie that Mina's sister is calling her saying, hey, like, we really want to see you. The twins, her twin boys, are really missing her, and that she has to let go of what happened 15 years ago. And this is how she convinces to get the guy to let them back in, when they realize that he was very much against the old white-haired lady and just wanted to escape and to leave them for dead. She begs him to let them in because that kind of guilt on your conscience changes you as a person. He finally lets them in, and the watchers are not happy, and they lift this rug and they go into this, seems like a secret contraption, and it is created there by this professor of fays, of fairies, of this mythical creatures. He is a professor who came to this forest because of what this forest is known for, and he wanted to discover them. So they go through some of the videos that he had, and on day 300, he tells them that he tried to trap a fae, which is what we understand the watchers are. They are fae who have been hurt by humans before and forced to live underground, and their beautiful wings were taken from them, and that they just have to live this horrible life where they trap humans and try to become like them. And he trapped one of these fays who looked like a little girl with red hair and a red dress, and he tried to transform this person into his wife, and he did a pretty good job, but he decided that he was going to kill himself and the fae, and that is the last video, and he tells them how they can escape the island. So the four of them get back together and they are running. Once the daylight has come out and the fays have to go away, they're running through the forest. She still has her bird. They're running through, and it is almost dark when they reach the end of the forest and they find the boat that will help them escape. And Dylan is the boy, and he gets trapped by one of the fays as he believes that it is the husband of the other girl, and he is left behind. And we see the fays transform into him, take him over, kill him, and the other three escape. Now, the professor had requested of them that they go back to where his classroom was and destroy all the evidence, and Mina goes there the next day and she discovers that he had a wife and that the wife looked exactly like the woman that she escaped with. And she also finds out that that wife is dead. So the person that they had brought with them was one of the Fae, but she was a special Fae because she was half human, and that was the reason why she could walk in the daylight. And once Mina discovers this, she tries to go to see the other woman and warn her, and she realizes that this was the Fae and who had transformed into her friend, and she starts to attack her, and she begs her not to. She finally is able to make her see reason, and she says that you are also human, that you might be Fae, but you're also human, and that is why you can walk out of the forest and walk during daylight, and why you were different from the rest. And she convinces her that this is not her path to kill her, it's to create a way for the Faes to be accepted back into this world. We see her transform into a Fae with wings, which none of the other Faes have, and she escapes, and we do not see her again. The scene shifts, and we see Mina with her twin sister, and each of the twin boys are next to one of the sisters. So it looks like a parallel reality where there is two replicas of the same humans. And that is basically where the story ends. Then we see a little girl with red hair and a red dress standing in the street watching up at the scene unfolding with the twin sisters and the twin boys. And that is where we are left with. And the difference between an M. Night Shyamalan movie and this one is he really does not delve into the fantasy realm like that. He will not go into those kinds of places like his daughter decided to do, but it is quite the social commentary of what we are witnessing on a daily basis and how we are constantly switching from being a watcher and a person who is developing this reality around us. The watchers represent us and being the people overseeing what is happening to others and that we are mimicking constantly. I believe it is a commentary on this idea of social media where we are on one side of the screen watching another person and we are trying to become them. And as the watcher, it is never an exact replica that we become of the person we are watching on the other side of the screen. There's influencers who share these amazing lives, and then there is those on the other side of the screen who are transforming into that, or at least doing their best to transform into that. But because of this want to transform into something they're not, they're unable to live a full life. And they only come out when they're allowed to. And this is the social insight that is offered to us, is that Mina has to let go of what happened in the past in order for her to step forward. And she has somebody who looks exactly like her. And there are twin boys who look exactly like each other. And even then, they still do not know what the other person has experienced, even though a lot of their experiences have been the same since they grew up together. So it is this constant push and pull of realizing that you are alone in this world, in your thoughts, and that you are the only one who will ever have experienced the world through your perspective and through what you have done. And it is a place of being lonely, but it is also a place of great power because you have the ability to transform your own view of the world and what it means. While being the watcher tells us that we are constantly taking in what is happening around us for the good and for the bad. And what we decide to give our attention to is what we become. And that is what the watchers are doing. They are staring at these people every single night in this englassed room, and they are looking at them and trying to become them. And it is a one-sided relationship because they don't actually get to really know them, because the ones on the inside know that they're putting on a show. They are pretending, they are dancing for them, and that they are looking as pretty as possible for them. So there is no real basis on what is being interpreted. Everything is a show, and it is up to interpretation of the other person and up to the discretion of the person being watched to share the version that they want to. So when we go out into the world and we look at all these people who live such amazing lives and we envy them, we have to understand that it's from our own vantage point. We don't know what's on the inside world of their personal life and of themselves and what they think on a daily basis. So it is a reality that we are constantly battling with, that there are people around us who we feel like we know, but we actually don't. And when we try to transform into them, we are giving ourselves the greatest disservice of trying to say, but everybody else is so much more important and has all of these characteristics that I want. So we never really hear about what happens with the pet store owner and why he told her to go into this forest. We're never given insight into that, and I wonder if he knew to some extent, if he was connected in some way, and if there was ever really a point, and maybe it's just the further example that we have to decide for ourselves what is safe and what is not safe. When she realized that she was driving into the middle of an unknown forest to drop off a bird without very clear instruction, she should have questioned it, and she probably wouldn't have ended up in that situation. So there are people who have this authority over us and who ask demands of us, but it is up to us to decide if it is the right decision for us. And she did it with this blind faith in this person, and that is usually what we are doing when we are watching people and deciding that they are an authority of this way of living, that we just follow blindly what they're saying and want to become that, even though we don't know the full truth, and that there may be a sinister reason behind it, and it may not be, but it just might be benign enough to say, you know, I'm just living my life, and if you're just choosing to follow me, that's up to you. And that constant trying to blame others and trying to blame ourselves is what is going on in this film. She blames herself, and in no way does she actually blame the pet store owner, and we never see her go back to that, and I assume she never did. But we see this internal struggle, and Mina is transformed by this experience. She is able to accept at a deeper level that people have very intense reasons why they choose to do things, and that it doesn't always pan out. That professor died in that forest, and all of his work was simply left behind. One of the students who works at the university says that there's pretty much like a cult following on his work and how influential it was, but people don't really venture into the forest, which is a good thing, that it's mostly just a myth to them, and they're like, oh, this is something fun to talk about, but isn't necessarily something that they want to do themselves. And they realize that the fays and the fairies were also hurt by people, and that this is something that we keep going back to, is we hurt others, and then others usually have to deal with the consequences of that choice. The fairies most likely lived in a beautiful forest with pretty flowers and pretty homes where they got to enjoy each other's company and love, and you know, they were the fairies that we think of, the beautiful wings and the beautiful dresses, and that they enjoyed life. And then the humans came in and deceived them and forced them to live this horrible life. And they spent a majority of the rest of their times trying to get back at these people. So when do we stop blaming others and actually follow through on the thing that we've always wanted from life? And that is what we see the half human, half fae individual finally do. She decides, you know what, I want to create a better world, and I want to bridge these two worlds, because I am the bridge between these two. I am half one world and half the other, and it is often those who experience two sides, who are a bridge between one country and another, or one religion and another, who realize what it means that we are all much more connected than separated. And us being the watchers is that representation, that there's things that we are accepting and taking in, but then it is ultimately what we decide to do with that information. The Fae could have easily killed Mina, but she understood that she was also half human and she didn't want to kill another human. So what is it that we are doing with our choices, and how are they continuing to impact us? And this is the theme of all of these movies we watched recently. It is, how can we stop blaming what has happened before and accept what is happening right now, and that it is our own truth that matters, and that we can choose to follow it at any point. There is an entire world out there that is waiting for us to accept that we don't just have to watch the world, that we can actually influence it for ourselves. And there are influencers and there's people in our life who guide us in certain directions if we allow them to, but it's ultimately our decision. It was the Faye's decision to want to escape the forest to help those humans as they were there, and that was her humanness coming out. And there was flashbacks to when she protected everyone else, and that was her choice, and that was not something that she could always be acting. So we might be pretending and deceiving others, and this was what Mina was doing at the beginning, and she never put another wig on. She didn't want to deceive others because she wanted to live truly as she was. She decided to let go of the pain that she had, and she moved on. So it is in that truth that we have to accept that the reality of everything around us is in our own interpretation, and that we can be watchers or we can be the creators, and at the end of the day it is our choice, and that no matter which side we choose, we are always switching back and forth between these roles, from being the watched to being the watcher, from being the person who is actively changing the world for the better and the person who's actively doing not such good things. So if you've seen The Watchers or plan to watch it, I wonder what you think about it. And one of the questions that I'm left with is, what happened to the car? Was it just an illusion? Did the Watchers take it? And if the Watchers did take it, then it wasn't that they were forced to be out only at night. Maybe there was other Fays that can walk during the day. So I wonder if that's what it is, because when she went down into the burrow, there was so many other stuff that was out. So is that what happens? Is there other halflings? That's what they call the half humans, half Fays. And I wonder if there's others, and that's why they're able to walk during the day, but they don't want to hurt the humans because they're also human. So there's still some questions, and I wonder if there will be a second part. It very much ended in a way that there doesn't need to be, but you never know. Most of the time it's usually just a standalone, but hopefully there are other movies coming our way from Ishana, and yeah, let me know. Did you watch the movie? Are you going to watch it? And what are you learning from being a watcher or being watched? Let me know. Hope you have a great day.